Senator Reid, great to have you on New Day. I want to start with the president's comments on these really refuting the CIA findings. Let's listen to what he said yesterday, and I want to get your reaction.
No, they didn't conclude. They did not come to a conclusion. They have feelings certain ways, but they didn't have the report. And you can ask Mike, they have not concluded. Nobody's concluded. I don't know if anyone's going to be able to conclude that the Crown Prince did it.
Senator, is the president lying?
Yes. The CIA concluded that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia was directly involved in the assassination of Khashoggi. They did it, as has been reported in the press, with high confidence, which is the highest level of accuracy that they will vouch for. It's based on facts. It's based on analysis. The notion that they didn't reach a conclusion is just unsubstantiated. That the CIA has made that clear.
So, Senator, why do you think he's covering for the Saudis, and what can the Senate do about it?
Well, I think he feels that he has an arrangement with the Saudis in terms of the region where they will act on behalf of their own interests, but he hopes the United States' interests. I think he also has made this claim about their financial input into the United States, although it's widely exaggerated. And I think he probably has relationships going back to previously business relationships, and he might even be thinking in the future of business relationships with the Saudis. So he's put himself in a compromised position where he can't look at intelligence reports in a detached, objective way and make a conclusion and then introduce evidence and introduce policies to affect a better outcome. He seems to be a captive of the Saudis, actually.
So money over morality, that's clearly a pattern. But the question I have for you is, what about the use of the Magnitsky Act? Because a bipartisan coalition of your colleagues have put forward it to try to get to the truth and force the administration's hands on the Saudi killing of Khashoggi.
That is one of the most important ways that we can get some kind of reconciliation here. My colleagues, principally Senator Corker and Senator Menendez from the Foreign Relations Committee, have sent a letter along with many others on a bipartisan basis, and it's important to emphasize bipartisan basis, to the president to ask, demand, in fact, under the law, that he indicate the level of participation of the Crown Prince, MSB, in this situation. And in that case, that if there is conclusive evidence, which I believe there is, the CIA has indicated, then we should take steps under the Magnitsky Act to impose sanctions on the Crown Prince.
Now, Senator,
and others.
Yeah, well, you are the top Democrat on the Armed Services Committee going forward. What do you make of the president's call with the military on Thanksgiving Day? Because you've been a tough critic of the president about his decision not to visit troops in a war zone to date, which seems to depart from presidential tradition. But why is that so important?
Well, it's important because you're there. You're physically there. You're, for a moment at least, not a long time, for a moment, you're sharing the kind of dangers, sharing the tensions, the difficulties. You're also sending a message back to their families who are tremendously supporting these young men and women, that you understand their suffering also. And it's nice. He mailed it in yesterday, basically. It was easy. You're sitting in a palatial estate in Florida on a phone call for a few minutes, and gee, guys, do a great job. That's nothing. To go someplace, even briefly, to go through the rigors of the travel, to be there with the troops, to stand in a mess line, to have an MRE with them, that's something that sends the message that I'm trying my best, I'm trying for you, it's about you. Yesterday's phone call was all about Donald Trump. The troops were just sort of ploys. They were being used to exploit his ideas. This was a time when he should have been honestly and deeply and sincerely thankful for their efforts.
Well, and the president says nobody's a bigger booster of the troops than he is, and he signed a very generous VA bill that would back some dollars behind that sentiment. Let's take a listen to some of what the president said about the troops, and I'll have a question for you on the other end.
They have to. They're going to use lethal force. I've given the okay. Yeah, if they have to. I hope they don't have to. But, you know, you're dealing with a minimum of 500 serious criminals. So I'm not going to let the military be taken advantage of. I have no choice.
Now, Senator, that's about the border. And the broader question is, given the troops that were deployed to the border before the election, that order being given down, and some reporting that they're now being withdrawn, do you think the president is politicizing our military?
Oh, absolutely. In the case of the border, this is not an effort to defend the nation. This is an effort to divide the nation for the politics of the last election. The troops were just sort of extras in his political campaign. Under federal law, posse comitatus, they cannot be used as law enforcement. They can be used, and they have in the past by other presidents, to provide support, engineering support, other type of technical support. But the notion that Trump tried to convey was that they were going to be shoulder to shoulder on the border, that they would be firing at civilians, women and children included, that would be coming across. That's absolutely preposterous. It's illegal, and it's unprofessional. And it would put these soldiers, sailors, and Marines, all the personnel on the border, in a very difficult position, where they would be flirting with violating the Constitution, or else themselves perhaps even subject to some recriminations after the fact. That's not what you want to do if you're the commander-in-chief. There's a role for the military, it's support, it's logistics. The proper role is by the Border Patrol. They're trained law enforcement officers. If we need more law enforcement officers at the border, the president can summon other agents within the federal government who are civilian law enforcement officers and conduct this mission. The whole operation was just a political stunt.
Well, it's a big accusation, tough talk, that the troops were being used as extras in his political campaign. Senator Reid, thank you for joining us on New Day. And I should note that you have been to Iraq and Afghanistan more than a dozen times each during your term in Congress. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think 17 to Afghanistan and 20 to Iraq.
It's a good example to set for us all. Thank you, sir.